Hello, Screen Junkies. I'm so excited. We have an exclusive interview here with two amazing producers, directors. You know them from the John Wick franchise. I'm so happy to have Chad Stahelski and David Leitch. Thank you so much for coming, guys.
No, thank you.
We just got to sit and watch the Honest trailer together, so thank you for doing that with us and giving us your honest opinions on what we did. It's always a little nerve-wracking to show it to the people we respect so much. But thank you for coming here. We had so many fans' questions that we want to sort of get and ask you guys about John Wick and about stuff you guys are working on in the future, and also your past. You guys have been stunt performers in so many classic films. I'd love to sort of get to it. So I'm going to get straight to it and get to some of the stuff. Trevor Gutierrez asked us, every kid has that one action movie growing up that they love to no end. What was yours, and how did it inspire you to get up into stunt work?
Wow. Lethal Weapon. Yeah. I don't know. I watched it a million times. Riggs.
Murtaugh.
Yeah, just great.
Did you continue through the franchise, or was it always just the first one?
I was always a huge fan. But we were watching on VHS back then, and HBO had just come out. I'm dating myself, but that was I must have watched it on repeat 100 times. Loved it. I mean, we're always fans of Jackie Chan and Hong Kong cinema, but as American movies go, that's where
Where it came from?
I'd go Raiders of the Lost Ark has always been I like the adventure sense of things, like the archaeologist, wacky stuff. I'd say that or Die Hard. But Lethal Weapon's up there.
No, but Die Hard, we have this sort of thing where we do with our characters. We call the Die Hard.
Yeah, Die Hard syndrome. Barefoot and just beat the shit
out of them.
So you do that on purpose to sort of get them through
I
there.
think it's great character trait. Show vulnerability, see the guy get knocked down, but then still keep going. I thought Bruce Willis nailed it on that.
I mean, that's a perfect script, right? Die Hard? I mean, is that the best action film?
Raiders and Die Hard, I think, are pretty perfect because they both do the same thing. They beat their characters. It's not a physical thing. It's just raw determination and persistence.
Yeah, they're everymen. Yeah. They're not superheroes.
They use your brains more than anything else, and we like that.
Well, the action's so amazing, John Wick, because you actually let us see it, which I think is we discussed a little bit before. But it's not, you're not hiding stuff. You guys obviously have done it for your whole lives and done it. But we have so many questions, sort of because you've made John Wick look so impossible to beat. This came in by numerous people. Andrew Franklin asked, "What person, fictional or real, could beat John Wick? No superheroes. Is there someone in the old action films?
You can include superheroes. I think a lot of them.
It is pretty, fantastical what he does.
Could John McClane take him out? Is there any
Oh no.
Jason Bourne?
No.
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 Bond?
No.
You guys are a Bond fan, right?
Huge Bond.
Who's your favorite Bond?
I'm gonna go with I like Sean Connery and Daniel Craig. But it's not that I don't like the other ones, but I'm going to go with Connery just because when I was growing up, he was the guy.
Yeah.
So that I just have a nostalgia for him.
Would you ever want to do a Bond film?
Yeah.
At the right time, yeah.
Totally. I mean, I think that there's elements that we've sort of...
We love Bond.
We steal from Bond for Wick, or for everything we do, sort of like the way that they do action and the way they put it in the forefront.
Yeah, every character, every series has got its up and downs. To come in and do a 2 of someone else, like a Nolan's 2 or something like that would be tricky. But, right now, if you have the Bond looking for a resurgence or almost like a reinvention, it'd be fun to step in and take a try at it. Yeah, what a great challenge. Right?
It'd be great.
It'd be great.
Yeah, I think it's a...
I want to see that.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Please do.
We'd like to see that.
Yeah, let's do it. Come on,
Internet, make it happen.
Edward Tao wants to ask, is Alex Winter being considered for John Wick Chapter 3? Can we have some sort of fun cameo? Bring him finally. They keep talking about Bill and Ted 3.
Who said that?
This came from Edward Tao, one of our fans.
Edward, call. Good call. Why didn't I think of that? Why didn't you think of that?
Some fun,
I don't know. I
you got Morpheus in there.
Matrix, you in? Don't. Whoa.
It's on the list.
Is there any sort of team up that would be fun to see to put John Wick with? Could you see it getting to that point where it becomes a little bit of a Lethal Weapon of let's put him with this type of character?
I don't know. Maybe we'd have to think about it. If it fit into the story and it brought something out that was fresh. Could be cool, but just as a gag, I don't think we try to stay away from just the sight gag. Like Lawrence, we're number 2. We actually wrote that character based on Lawrence Fishburne, and then it just so happened he was available and he was interested, which was a massive shock.
Yeah.
But that kind of worked out well. It wasn't meant to be a Matrix reunion. It was just best guy for the job. We thought.
I mean, what was that like working with him? I mean, he's a legend.
Yeah, it was one of those.
He's great.
Yeah, Dave and I spent a lot of time with him on the Matrix. He's just that guy, and he was kind of a friend too that kind of taught us a lot. A bit of a mentor in a way. So when it's come time to direct him, there was that. I mean, literally my first take of that scene on the rooftop going, the man, the myth, the legend. Lawrence had did it up to a point where we were going to cut and readjust the camera. And you got the man that met the man. You're not very good at retiring, are you? Yeah. And I'm sitting at the monitor just going, oh, this is awesome. And Lawrence just kind of stops and looks over and goes, you going to yell cut? Or I'm like, yeah, cut. Sorry, kind of geeked out.
I'm curious because you guys have been obviously involved in so many amazing films, but like as the stunt performers, like clearly you guys are directors. You've always sort of wanted to get there. Were you ever directing the movies in the back of your head of like, they're doing this wrong? They should actually be doing this.
Think you're not necessarily saying they're doing it wrong. You're just getting the value of seeing their mistakes and the things that work and things that don't work from a lot of different directors. So it's not like it's you're being critical. You're just like, you see them make mistakes and then you see them have great triumphs and you can sort of like figure out your own style. You have a really unique access as a stunt performer to everyone who works in the creative side of film.
Right, and those directors are relying on you because they don't know how to do it like you do, right? So I mean, there's
when we're stunt coordinating and choreographing and second unit directing, they're definitely relying on us.
Yeah, to come up with choice and show them into it. I mean, you can't be an expert on everything. So they're trying to do it like that. We give them choices. And like Dave said, there's no right or wrong. We don't ever say like, oh, that's bad or that's good. Well, we do. But
we're like honest trailers.
Yeah, we're like, well, that's good.
In our head.
You don't know, because sometimes we've believed in a choice, and it's not whether it was a good choice or a bad choice. It just didn't work. Maybe because in your head, the line is delivered a certain way, but the cast member is delivering it a different way. But because of the tone of the movie, the scene kind of, filmmaking does have a little bit of that creative, what do you call it? Obtuseness. They just kind of form it. It takes on a life of its own.
It's an organic process, And
so sometimes you got to roll with that.
Yes, you have to.
What's one of those sort of negative lessons you learned? You don't have to name names, but like, is there something? I'm just curious as you
tone. Know your tone before you roll the camera, before you roll one frame. Some guys, well, we're gonna do this. You watch so many movies nowadays that got that what's kind of serious, then it's trying to be funny. Then it feels like 2 or 3 different movies. Just all the biggest mistakes, at least I've noticed when we go for cleanup jobs, is like they didn't decide on what the movie was. It's kind of like if it takes 3 different movies to define what your movie is, it's a Die Hard meets Ant-Man, kind of with Civil War, but it's kind of like Batman vs. Superman. You don't know what your movie is. You know what I mean?
Does that happen a lot?
Well, I think at the studio level more it happens because there's so many people involved and everyone has an opinion, and there's sort of like there is a loss from the one vision, the director's one vision. And that's what we had on the first John Wick. Like we were making that under the radar.
Right.
Everyone's like, they're doing a Keanu Reeves movie. They sold it foreign.
They
have like $19 million if that. And But no one was like meddling. But then when the bigger these things get and the more successful they are, like John Wick 2, then you have more opinions and you're navigating things. And the big studio stuff that we come in as second unit directors to fix, there's a lot of voices. There's a lot of money. There's a lot of opinions, and it's sometimes hard to steer the boat.
Right.
With one vision.
Really, you don't want to step on toes or anything, but you watch what they show, and you're like, wow, this is. You're trying to be
how did they? What weird group think came up with that idea?
Yeah. So much money is being spent. It's hard. You have to.
It is. It's compromise. It's like this person doesn't want to say this person. So everybody's okay. Well, I'll do my idea, but you do your idea. Like he just, Da Vinci paints. He's not asking opinion. You know what I mean? You got to go do your thing, and if it's going to be a comedy, make it a comedy. It's all the little sprinkling throughout. It's not one comedic scene or one serious scene. It's like it's either serious and you ride it, and you just got to pick your tone, and that puts you on the right tracks, I think.
Yeah, so you were Brad Pitt's stunt double for a really long time in some classic films from Fight Club, et cetera, and you did Keanu's work in Matrix, et cetera. Like working with someone that closely, like what are the lessons you learn or take away? Is there a funny, cool story from set or something you sort of take away from being able to step into those shoes and sort of see how as Keanu or Brad at the time handled it to sort of get you?
Well, I think what Dave said originally, like just doubling the lead like that, you have this key to get in all these doors. You're in the rehearsal, you're spending a lot of time with cast, so you're seeing how they portray it. Like, I would say maybe for Dave too, all the other doors that open, you can see things, and if you pay attention, you can learn a lot about filmmaking. But most of it, it's like, you watch how a really good actor we could teach him all the kung fu in the world, and if he doesn't turn it on in the sequence, you're just watching a guy do moves. I think Brad, Matt, Hugh Jackman we work with, Jennifer Lawrence, Scarlett Johansson, they all turn it on when they act. If you watch Keanu, like he's in it. The moves memorized, they're done. But whoever it is, they're taking story and they brought it into the action. They're acting in the action. That's why you love these guys. You don't love the character, you love the guy doing the character, and that makes you love the character.
Well, it's like learning the lines in a way, right? Because you got to learn the lines.
They don't know the difference between a dialogue scene and an action scene. It's still acting. It's still the guy, and they just transcend action, non-action to just it's story. I'm shooting a gun in one part of the story. I'm talking at a table in another story.
No, and I think that's part of the reason why. Well, that is the reason why we want to keep the actors in the action, and that's sort of our shtick when it comes to action. Like, how do we get them? How do we not break the character? Yeah. How do we stay with them? And it's not a stunt double.
How do you not break it? Yeah.
And don't break the illusion for the audience, and let that character come alive, and let the actor perform. Yeah. You just want to hang it on talented people like those guys.
Yeah.
What was the biggest challenge in the sequel, coming from sort of having this leaving it to ourselves? Now you're a little bit more advanced. Like, what would you say was the lesson from part 2?
For John Wick 2? Oh, overall? Same kind of thing. Like, realize what was great about the first one. Like, that goes for any of the challenges like we're doing now with any other sequels we're doing, or a reinvention or a reimagining of a property of anything that's already been established. Is know what was magic. Take the magic. Don't try not to overplot it. Like, I think Dave and I both like character-driven plots. Like, you're with the guy. It's the Sergio Leone thing. I don't need to know where he came from. I don't need to know how he's saving the world or what the spaceships are or how we got here. Like, it's just stay with the guy. If the guy is interesting, your plot in the movie is going to be cool because you're engaged. If you can't engage, like, any of the most complicated plots in the world are cool, but you still want to be with the guy. Like, whether it's Die Hard, like we talked about, or Indiana Jones. Like, if Indiana Jones never existed, the Ark still would have taken out the Nazis. But you went on the journey with him anyway. Like, that was the fun part. Yeah. In fact, he got in the way of it. You know what I mean? And that was the genius behind that movie. It's like, they're going to do themselves in, but you like being with the guy. And I think that's what we tried to do with the sequel. Is we got so plotty in our first couple things. We're just like, we don't like the plot. Like, why do we have to cut away from, like, who do we love? John Wick. So who do you want to be with the whole movie? John Wick. Let's stay with John Wick, and John Wick's going to introduce us to the world, not anybody else. And we just kind of went with that.
Well, you guys have clearly succeeded. I mean, you have some amazing films in the pipeline developing. I mean, there's a Highlander project that's been discussed that you're working on, and obviously you're starting Deadpool 2, which we're all very excited about. How do you take the lessons of the John Wick and the stunt world into these big movies that we're all so excited about? What can you sort of tell us in sort of your prep, or sort of what you want to make sure you do?
I mean, I don't think our prep is going to change now that we're going into these bigger titles. I mean, I think that we're sort of prep freaks, and I think we want to apply the stuff that works for what we did in John Wick, and it was like training the cast, making them badass, making them able to do that stuff, stay with the character like Chad just went on about, and I think expanding the world. I think what's interesting about the Highlander franchise and why we were drawn to it is that it's another whole world building thing, and the thing that I was interested about Deadpool is, like, it's already a cool existing world, but I think that there's more that can be explored. So, I think we're just applying the same sort of
same
methodology we did to John Wick, and it seems that that works and people like it.
I mean, Deadpool's a no-brainer, but I would say something a little unpopular. Like, Highlander has a lot of bad stuff associated with it too. It feels like the perfect franchise to actually do right and do better.
That's why we liked it.
Because it's a great idea. It has a lot to it. So, I mean, do you see that too?
Yeah, no, big challenge. Like, everybody that go back and watch the original Highlander will go, it's kind of little cheese here and there, but there's something magic about it, and it's the idea of the hidden world and the mythology of it. Like what we were saying earlier, grasp what we think is great, expand on it. Be careful not to basically trip over yourself. Like, keep it simple, keep it to what people love, which is the mythology of it. And I think exploring is like, I don't think I've ever seen an action design or an action sequence of guys that actually trained for 500 years in anything. I mean, that opens a whole new door for us. What we did with guns and John Wick, we'll do with swords, and we'll make it, it's a challenge. Redefine the sword fight.
I was going to ask, so that is something you're looking into already?
Oh, totally. Absolutely.
Because that sounds exciting.
On it.
And it's something we've been wanting to do for a long time.
Yeah.
Well, Deadpool's got swords too, interesting enough. I mean, so
we love swords.
This came to question. I think it's sort of it's something maybe you can tell us about, because I know you got to be careful talking about Deadpool. This came from Verdant, Naik. When directing an action film, how important is it to storyboard versus improvisation? And I think it's more pointed towards you, because it's like Ryan Reynolds clearly is very funny, wants to sort of do how important is it to be as prepped as possible when going to do that sequence versus allowing for ad libs or moments of comedy that you can do?
Well, when you're talking about action, I think prep is key and storyboard is key, and the way you're going to shoot it. You can't separate the way you shoot action from the way it's choreographed. Like, they're linked. But now that there's an element of comedy, like we talked about, the filmmaking process is organic. You have to leave room on set for those spontaneous moments. And you know, that's always the challenge, and you just roll with it. I mean, you go in with a plan, you go in with your shot list and your boards, and like you get
buys you time.
Yeah.
The more you prep, the more time you have to.
Exactly, prep buys you freedom. You come in with a really strong plan and you change 3 things, you're going to be fine. It's when you don't know what you're doing when you show up, and it's like it's improv day. Even this like improv, like great improv directors have had the fortunate to work on Anchorman 2, and you see these guys work. You know, Adam has a list of things, and he's like reading them off, like try this, try this, try this, try this. We do the same in choreography. We're like, the fight scene's modular, but there's 3 endings. Maybe this punctuation is better. Maybe that punctuation is better. Maybe the joke is better. Maybe the physical gag is better. So we do the same, you know, homework. It's all about it's prepped. So it's improv is kind of a loose.
Right.
It's improv, but it's within rules.
Like it's building a house. Like you can improv the finish work, but you still got to frame it.
Yep.
You know, so if we go in there, we know what we're lighting, we know what we're shooting, we're gonna do that. Like small improv, that's great. That's what you're supposed to be ready for.
And we have fun sometimes. Like even the fight scene in the first Wick in the kitchen. We had a skeleton, we had a plan, and then I remember like we set up the camera and I think it was you like, we should just pull him off here and just like break his neck, and we're like, yes, we should do that. It was one of those inspired moments.
Literally pick the dude up.
And we're like, so we're like, change the camera angle, get this shot from here, and you flow and you go.
But that makes sense.
That's still one of my favorite shots.
It's a great shot. But so you're right. Having that prep allows you're organized, you're ready. Oh, I can now.
Yeah,
be
and you're not
in
behind in the day either. You're making your day, and
you have
flow.
to make a day. So if your whole day is spent like no one knows what's going on, like they gotta light it, they gotta think. Like it's not like we just decide, hey, let's improv. There's a 200-person crew behind us. It's got to move. Like, what if you're shooting this direction? The whole crew's there. You got to move the whole crew. Like, you got to have a plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love this because I love that you guys take it seriously and you bring that sort of thought process to it. As you're now joining these sort of bigger tentpole things moving forward, like, what's your big thing you want to hope to sort of bring and have a takeaway from either Deadpool, Highlander, et cetera?
I mean, I know for like I'm a huge fan of Deadpool, the movie, and I think that there's something that we can do with the sort of the building out of the world and sort of like, you know, and the franchise, and even with, you know, adding a little bit of flair to the action in sort of the 8711 style. And I saw that as something that I could really be a value add, you know. And look, I think that Ryan is so in touch with who that character is that the DNA is not going to change. But I think that we can add just a little bit of sort of the, like I said, the 8711.
You go deep, you expand out, you have fun with it.
I mean, he's a good boss because you want him to sort of tell you what to do because he actually knows it better than anybody else.
Yeah, I mean, he understands the character inside and out. He understands the mythology of that character. He's that guy, you know. And so when you have that part taken care of, and it's actually not unlike Wick. Well, Keanu takes care of Wick, and you know, once he's built and we built them together, he takes care of him.
We're
so you're not worried about that part, and that's like a huge weight off a director's shoulder.
Yeah, no. Defining a character, it takes up all your time in the first.
And you get to really like now play with the world and play with, you know, all the other elements of it.
Now you're having fun.
Yeah.
Now you're doing different colors.
Right.
I got to ask this because you both worked on X-Men Origins Wolverine, which is not one.
Loosely.
We're a big fan. Oh, loosely. Okay, good.
Yeah,
but is it sort of redemptive now to come back and be able to do it almost right? I feel like
wait, which one was that?
Exactly. That was the one where they made the mistake of sewing up Ryan's mouth.
Oh, that one.
Yeah.
We did a little bit with that.
Yeah,
remember
we did.
that?
Well, what we done, we were hired early on in the sort of pre-viz process,
stage,
and we did a lot of what we call stunt viz. So we choreographed the fight scenes, and we would shoot them on video and edit them.
Were you doing the one with Wolverine and Deadpool on the top of the power plant?
Yep.
Yep.
We did a little of that. That was
you
Scott Atkins. Yeah, we did a little
you
of that
actually
when we were
went
in
down.
Australia.
Didn't you go down to Australia?
Where you kept morphing away from
Yes.
the
So
weird powers?
basically, we had our fingerprints in a lot of the sequences.
Yeah, we did.
Either
like,
you or I. We were on it at different times.
We did the wire
was
rigs
good.
to do like
He was
that. Yeah,
good.
no, he's great. I thought that was cool what he did. Like his character in that was pretty. Sabretooth was pretty.
So you
cool.
come into a project that already you're like, why is his mouth? But that's not my place to say. There's nothing I can do about that.
We didn't know the character back then.
Yeah, as much.
No, and I think it's a lot of people didn't know.
No,
Right.
Deadpool was just being
Yeah.
intro at
It
that
was
point.
like, yeah.
You know,
So-
I think it was an afterthought. Again, we weren't. We
But
were
it sort of
brought in,
goes in these moments
do
if you
cool
get
action.
when you get stuck in a movie like that. It's not really you're there to do the job, get it done, do the best you can do.
Yeah. I mean,
you're
they hand us
a gun.
parameters
You're a
and-
gun for hire in some respect. It's like make the action as obviously respect the characters. We always approach it that way, and I think that's why we ended up rising to director. But you're like they're like, please make this action good.
Is there one story you can tell me as we wrap this up? Like, is there one from any of your films back in the day that you're really proud of that sort of wouldn't have made it without you sort of putting in there? Like, is there what's your badge of honor sort of from your library?
We killed a puppy.
That's obvious. What about previous John Wick?
Previous John Wick.
Like in our action career.
Oof. Way back when. Dave was a second grade school teacher driving a purple Chevelle.
That was before.
Cavalier.
That was way back.
I go way back. That's how we got him out into stunts.
Before stunts. Look,
So that was pretty funny.
We can talk about that. We'll have a separate interview about my years as a second grade teacher.
He was good. A lot of arts and crafts.
My finger painting is amazing.
That's why you got to be patient on these movies, yeah.
Actually, you know what? I learned everything I needed to do to deal with a crew.
Yeah, totally.
Teaching second grade.
Yeah, totally.
Yep. All these personalities, they all need something a little different.
My wife's a nanny. I totally get it. Yeah.
Everybody sniffs glue. Eats the paste.
Yes. But I don't know. Like, I would never. Film is such a collaborative process, and I think when you're a second unit director and a choreographer, you come in. Yes, you have a huge impact on the movie, and yes, sometimes you're even rewriting sequences. Yes, sometimes you're even reconceptualizing, but it's still not your baby. And I think that's why John Wick is such a huge part of now our careers, because we actually got to do what we wanted to do. And I think we were always sort of in the confines of you're serving the greater good. So there's a lot of times where you could say, yeah, that was my idea. And there, that's that fight scene in the kitchen, like that's all me, you know. But is it, you know, I mean,
team player.
Yeah, the team player. You got to be. And as a director, I think we take this away. Like, it is collaborative with your team. There's an insular team, and you need them as much as they need you.
Yeah. That's, I think, the biggest thing we got out of second unit is how do you know what it is? It's the language of film. You can have this, an artist or a singer can picture or feel and sing. A director has at least, I'll be generous and say a dozen degrees of separation. It's more likely 200 degrees of separation. We've worked with people that cannot, they can picture something, they picture the tree in their head, but they can't explain what the tree is. Just go do it. And you're like, make tree, good, go, So it taught us how to speak. Like, if you can't communicate how to get it, you're never gonna get 200 people on board. So I think that's the big thing. So it's like, we have half the time for a shooting, half the resources, half the money. So you have to be quick. I want this. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to get it. This is the vibe we're going for. Everybody. Okay, good. Go team. You become like coach.
Right, so I imagine you want to keep working with a lot of the same people. So do you try and get Keanu in every movie? I mean, it would make sense for Highlander. He is practically immortal.
Right? Totally. Again, if that was the worst thing that ever happens to do your career with Keanu Reeves, that's not a bad thing.
Hey, every movie awesome. With him would be great.
Which X-Men member would you cast him as?
God,
I'm gonna leave that. To the Fox.
Leave that to people higher up there.
Have you gotten educated now on sort of that base? Is there someone you hope whether they are or not, like you want to sort of bring into that world that you eventually? Not saying it's happening now.
Yeah, there's a lot of actors that I hope that now that we're sort of dipping our toes in this sort of superhero thing. There's a lot of people we've worked with in the past that we'd want to sort of. That haven't done it yet, that we'd hope would do it with us. Yeah. So we're seeking out those people.
There's aggressively. Some iconic people.
Yeah. Because I think they've avoided it for whatever reason, because it's like I don't want to be a superhero franchise, but Deadpool has a lot of love. We're building things that I hope are fresh and original. Well, Chad, David, thank you so much for doing this, and keep up the good work. Keep fighting the good fight and making these good films for us. Thank you guys so much. You can watch more with Chad and David here by watching our Honest Trailer commentary, where they watch the John Wick trailer with us. It's a lot of fun. Thanks for watching.